Okay, so as you settle down, try again just to tune in to the atmosphere in this place, tune in to the sense of benevolence and kindness, that positive feeling you find in a place like this. And sometimes it feels a bit like this place is protected by some higher powers, some devas or whatever, because it's a very positive feeling when you perceive things in the right way. See if you can tune into that. That tends to lift your mind, and the meditation becomes much more natural as a consequence. And now, if you like, visualize in your mind's eye someone you respect for their spiritual qualities, and try to visualize qualities such as kindness and generosity and compassion. All of these things, what do these qualities mean? Try to see them through someone you respect, or just as qualities in yourself, perhaps. And then once you have got a feeling for what these spiritual qualities mean, remind yourself that there are so many beings in this world with such qualities. And as you see those beings in the northern direction, with beautiful hearts, beautiful clear minds, beautiful qualities, wish those beings in the northern direction, may you be well, may you be happy. And then turn your mind around to the western direction. And again, see all the qualities, the beautiful spiritual qualities in the beings in the West. And this time you can also include the devas, these beings who have developed such wonderful qualities as the result of which they are just there now. May all those beings in the West, may you be well and happy. And now turn your mind around to the southern direction. It doesn't really matter where it is, just a rough idea. And this time also bring in all the monastics in the world who practice to the best of their ability to go far on this path. And what a wonderful thing it is that we have such people who dedicate their whole life to the spiritual practice. So all those people to the south, including all the monastics, may you be well, may you be happy. And then come around to the last direction. And again, establish this, if you lose that feeling, just re-establish it from the beginning, remembering what these beautiful spiritual qualities are. And now all these beings in the western direction, including all the animals or whatever is found in the western direction, may you all be well and happy. And now, if you like, just visualize the planet Earth in your mind's eye, seeing this beautiful green, blue, brown, and white planet, and seeing all the beings connected with this planet, the animals, the humans, but also lots of invisible beings. All these beings on the earth, see them as kind of bathing in a beautiful golden light of compassion and kindness and care, and wish them all, may you be well, may you be happy. And now bring your attention back into this room to all the good people who have shared this retreat with you. And thank you everyone for being my Kalyanamitas for these last 9 days. Thank you for being someone trustworthy, someone I can work with in a good way on this spiritual path. Thank you for being part of this retreat. May every one of you, may you be happy and well. And now just come back to your breath and just stay with your breath for a few minutes. And once again, just take a few moments now at the end just to review your meditation. And if you do find that you are more peaceful or uplifted or whatever, ask yourself how this comes about. What is the process of letting go? What is the process of developing your perceptions? Okay. So I think we're going to have to go fast. Just warning you. So first of all, there was a couple of questions from yesterday that I was handed about some requests for meditations. One was for death contemplation, other one for 4 elements contemplation. And I sort of touched a little bit on those things yesterday and also this morning. So I hope that was at least enough to give you a little bit of a taste of those things. And otherwise, those meditations are also available. They have been recorded before, and they should be available on the BSW website, etc. So usually on the last night, I don't like to end with a death contemplation. I think it's better to end with something a little bit kind of soft and gentle in this way. So that was the reason I chose not to do that. Anyway, so let's do some of these questions and see what happens tonight. Okay, so these are the remaining questions from last night. We'll start with those. So dear Ajahn, meditation in the main hall of the monastery feels especially peaceful and calming. What is the secret? Any other place that you know of with similar atmosphere with metta? I think the secret is, first of all, the way the building has been built. It has a very kind of, there's not much echo in that building. It has a kind of natural peace to it, in part, I think, because of the carpet. And the windows are not really see-through, which is nice. It kind of has an inward focus to it. Here also there aren't really any windows in the same way, but that hall has something a bit extra to it. Maybe the roof and the ceiling and all of those things. That's one part of it. The other part, I think, is just that it has been used a lot by people who meditate really deeply for a long period of time. It was used regularly in the kind of early days by Ajahn Brahmali and the monks of the Ajahn Jagara or whatever. And so it has kind of built the atmosphere into it. It's kind of the deep meditation has sort of seeped into the walls, penetrated the walls. And now it's part of the building, the peace and all of that stuff. Perhaps, that's kind of what I would guess. Could also be that there are more devas around in the monastery, and maybe they create some juju. This is the vibe, right? The juju, the vibe, and some feeling. Maybe you can tune into that sometimes, because minds are minds, and sometimes minds can feel other minds, and so that may be the reason as well. This would be some of my suggestions. Okay. Dear Ajahn, you mentioned about the Chaitanya Karaniya Sutta, where sila leads to vimutti. So can virtue by itself lead to awakening without actually practicing anapanasati? Many thanks. The process from sila, you start with sila, it goes through a large number of steps: non-regret, joy, rapture, still tranquility, happiness or bliss, samadhi. So it has to go through all of those steps, and those steps are basically the meditation practice. So the sila is the foundation, and then the meditation happens through that process. That is the meditation. So when you experience those things, basically you close your eyes, you let go, and you use the breath as the kind of the anchor for that meditation. But it shows you that you don't really do very much. You are like the passive observer. You are aware the breath is there, the bliss is there, and this whole thing then develops according to that. So there is still meditation. It's just that it is not mentioned in that particular way. It's a more universal way of thinking about meditation. So you can use metta as an object, you can use different objects. It doesn't have to be the breath. It is more just the psychological change that happens through the process of meditation that you see there. That's kind of the idea. All right. Dear Ajahn, so today I can say what I want because there's no kind of pushback anymore now. There's no more questions, right? This is it. I can now. So usually on the first days you had to be careful because you said the wrong thing. People would ask kind of questions afterwards. You have to follow up. But now I can say whatever. So let's see what happens. Dear Ajahn, does mind consciousness always arise when any of the other sense consciousnesses arise when they come in contact with their respective sense objects? If it doesn't, then how does the eye, ear, nose, tongue, skin consciousness really register with the mind? Many thanks. Yes, that seems to be the case. Maybe not always. I think sometimes you may see things and it doesn't really register properly. And then it becomes like almost like a subconscious experience that is there. You had it, but it's very hard to recall because the mind hasn't taken that object. Yeah, and I think a lot because there are so many experiences we have, the mind doesn't necessarily deal with everything. Or it deals with things very, very quickly, like maybe, just very, very, very briefly, so briefly that you can't really recall it afterwards. But generally, yes, the mind then takes on that eye consciousness afterwards. You see something, and then you think about what you have seen, or the mind kind of remembers it in some way. You hear something, and you remember that sound. It's like, at night when you dream, you still see things in your dream. That's obviously mind consciousness seeing. So the mind can also do that seeing afterwards. And it is that mind consciousness that tends to give a sense of continuity to your experience because it always backs up all the other experiences. All right. Dear Ajahn, thank you for your encouragement to ask even the tiniest, dummiest question there, which makes one feel safe. Thank you. I would like to share and ask about two of my meditation experiences. The first was more than 4 years ago before I knew about Buddhism, and as I was encouraged to try meditation, I sat enduring the agony of remaining in the present moment, and watching thoughts, often thoughts passing through, and determined not to come out of the sitting. I continued watching the thoughts, and suddenly I entered into a setting on the beach where I could feel the comfortable breeze, and on the top left is the sun. The breath I recalled was very comfortable, almost feel like I am in a holiday beach resort. Okay, good. Second was less than a year ago that I experienced a retreat where after a few rounds of dozing off, watching the many thoughts passing through my mind, I suddenly awakened and appeared in a room. In that setting, I feel incredibly peaceful and the breath felt joyous, comfortable and soothing. Is there anything I could learn from these experiences? Thank you, Ajahn, for your patience on reading this. Many thanks. Okay, so what is happening here is that there is like a turning point in the mind. Yeah, so you are not enjoying the present moment, but you are still remaining with it, and you are allowing things to kind of pass through. This is kind of the whole point of the awareness of the mind, of mindfulness. You stay with things, and as you stay with things, they tend to become more comfortable, more easy. Yeah, things, a powerful mindfulness tends to make things calm down and gradually disappear. That's what mindfulness does. So often all you have to do is just wait. And you seem to have had a shift in awareness. Yeah, suddenly the mind kind of let go of something, and because it let go of something, something else arose, something beautiful arose in its place. And so I guess you have a kind of visual mind, and maybe you have some good experience from the past on the beach. I don't know, maybe. And then you kind of were back on the beach, you're feeling the breeze and seeing the sun, etc. And so somehow the mind created that. It could also be an experience maybe from a past life or something like that comes back to you. Sometimes I think we've all had experiences that are hard to explain, or thoughts or memories that are hard to explain, or dreams that are hard to explain. And I think some of those things are, the product maybe of past life experiences coming through when the mind is kind of very loose. Yeah, when you dream, the mind doesn't have any clear boundaries anymore. It's much more, things are much more open, and then these things can maybe come through as a consequence. Dozing off, yeah, I know many people who do that. They doze off in meditation, and then they wake up again, yeah, because then the mind becomes clear, bang, up again, and then the good meditation happens. This actually is not that uncommon, so that's good. And then you appeared in a room, so again the mind got clear, the mindfulness arose, some good things are happening, something happened in your mind, and that somehow was associated with a room. Yeah, somewhere in the past you probably had some good associations with a particular room or something. Maybe a meditation room, who knows what. And then all those good memories, the comfort comes back again. Something like that. Yeah, it's just a perception in the mind. So what it means is that just to be mindful. Yeah, don't give up too easily. Yes, the meditation is often a bit uncomfortable in the beginning. Yeah. And the reason is simply that we bring all of the roughness from the world with us into the meditation. Yeah, the mind is not really at ease. We're not really able to let go. Watching the breath is hard. The breath itself is a bit rough. And so you wait and you wait. Mindfulness, you allow mindfulness to do its work. And then when mindfulness does its work, actually everything becomes nice and smooth over time. It's beautiful to watch it, and you're just aware of it is happening. Yeah, you can see the roughness becoming peaceful, becoming nice. The thoughts are kind of dying down. Yeah, it's just like the power of mindfulness. And very often, the longer you sit, the more this can happen. And so this is kind of the idea. Some people don't have enough mindfulness. Actually, many people probably don't have enough mindfulness. And then what you have to do is to build up those other supporting qualities until the mindfulness is strong enough. That can be done through metta meditation, through the practice of all the factors of the Eightfold Path. You come back next year? Are you coming back next year? Yeah? Okay, some of you are. Okay, good. And then you try, and then actually it works better because you have put in all of those efforts and all the right causes in the meantime. All right. Dear Ajahn, thank you for your energizing teachings that inspires greatly. I suspect and feel that I have an attachment for goodness, and this causes dukkha for me. This attachment for goodness makes me attached to the person that emit the aura of goodness to the extent that my thoughts constantly revolve around the person. The thoughts are good intentions or thinking the best for the person. I'm not sure how to handle this overwhelming feeling of wanting the best for another. Can you kindly advise? Many thanks. It's not a bad attachment, because attaching to someone who is truly good, make sure that it actually is attachment to spiritual qualities and not something else. That's kind of important. So if you attach to someone like Ajahn Brahm, then it's probably a good thing. If you attach to the Buddha a little bit, good. Yeah, the Buddha is very, very not dangerous to attach to because it doesn't live anymore. So it's kind of a very safe bet to attach to the Buddha. Sometimes it's best to attach to dead people. Yeah, that's kind of the highest kind of attachment maybe before you give up everything here. So it's good to attach a little bit to these things. I mean, I think most people, if Ajahn Brahm were to die, would find that quite difficult. I don't think sometimes we understand fully how much he upholds things like the Buddha Society and Buddhism in many places around the world. He's like a kind of a pillar of Buddhism. He's very solid. I mean, I've observed him for 30 years, incredibly solid person. And it's probably hard to really see that. And so a little bit of attachment to that is probably a good thing. It is the kind of attachment that leads to overcoming attachments. It's a gradual process. So just make sure that you are really attaching to the goodness and that it is not something else going on, because then it is more problematic. That's kind of an important distinction right there. So, and then use that attachment to become a good person yourself. Use that attachment as an encouragement in your own life to then practice the Noble Eightfold Path. And as you do that, you will eventually overcome that attachment through the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. So don't worry too much about it. As long as it is a positive feeling, it gives rise to good feelings, and it actually is encouraging, then I think you are on the right track. That's how it seems to me, and there you are. Okay. Dear Ajahn Brahmali, how do you let go of energies, feelings that were passed to you from your mother while you were in the womb? With many thanks and metta. You do that by having compassion and love for your mama, by letting go of any bad things in the past, forgiving her for being just a human being with all her flaws and all the problems. It is pretty tough to be a mother. You want the best for your child, and sometimes you're not able sometimes to do the best because of your own circumstances and upbringing. So try to let go of the past. That's always the best thing. Understand your mother. She was, she was another robot, another automaton in this world. Is that the right word? Whatever it is. She was forced into being what she was. She deserves compassion and care and understanding. As you develop that metta, as you develop that compassion, gradually, don't force yourself if it's really difficult, but gradually learn to let go. Eventually, one day, the energy will be gone. Why? Because you have let go of that connection. And that is the most powerful way of doing it. So see what you can do. Dear Ajahn, can practice of anusatis itself lead to the final stage of nibbana? Many thanks. So on the Buddhist path, nothing in itself leads to the final stage of nibbana. You have to practice all the 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. The anusatis are part of satipatthana practice, because anusati is like sati, similar to kind of satipatthana. So it's a recollection of the Dhamma, basically, what it is about. And that is only one part of it. Everything else also has to be practiced. When it all comes together, then you achieve, you attain, you reach. Nibbana happens to you, whether you want to or not. It's good, don't be afraid of Nibbana. Nibbana is highest happiness, so it's good. So there you are. Sometimes Nibbana sounds a bit scary, right? Extinguishment. Jeepers. Do I want to be extinguished? But of course, it is a positive thing. This is kind of the point. So sometimes we have to be careful with these translations. Okay, this is a question from someone outside of the retreat. Okay, I'll put that to last so that we give preference to people here, but I think we probably have time to do it at the very end. Okay, dear Ajahn, what happens immediately after death? Last year we recommended a book called After, which suggests a bardo state in which beings review their life. Or is it the last thought at the dying moment which conditioned the next life? Why don't we know? The Arahant over the centuries would have known the answer to this important question. Is there a reason why the answer isn't clear? Knowing what happens next may make the death process less frightening for some. Thank you. It's a good question. Why haven't we kind of got these things clarified over the centuries? And there's probably many reasons for that. And one of the reasons that not everyone who has opinions about Dhamma are arahants. A lot of people are in the darkness. A lot of people are scholars. Those who write the books are often scholars. So that's why. So books, especially kind of these very important books where you have to know Pali, you write in Pali, you have to be very scholarly to be able to do these kind of things. And so arahants don't normally bother writing books. They kind of just teach you, So that right there you can kind of weed out a few potential arahants right away here. So this is the problem. So sometimes it's hard to know exactly what do arahants believe. Sometimes arahants may not know about the intermediate states, because that is not what arahantship is about anyway. Arahantship is about an insight into suffering, and it may not be that all the details of the rebirth process are known to the arahant. They know there is going to be rebirth, but not necessarily all the details of how that process works. So it's more complicated than that. So because of that, what you have to do really, we have to try to see what the suttas say. This controversy over whether there is an intermediate state goes almost all the way back to the time of the Buddha. There is a book in the Abhidhamma called the Kattavatu, which means the basis of discussion. And this book contains all the ancient arguments between the various schools of Buddhism. And in those ancient arguments, you had the Theravada school, who said, what does the Theravada school?
Theravada school says, Chuti Chitta, Patisandhi Vijnana. Yeah, one moment you're in this life, the next moment you are in the next life. That's kind of the Theravada point of view, right? And there's the Sautrantika. Sautrantika is another school that said, no, there is an intermediate state. Yeah, and this was an argument between the Sautrantikas. Sautrantika means those who take the suttas as their refuge or as their core belief. So who is right? Yeah, these are two ancient schools. Just because, we come from a Theravada social context doesn't mean that we should always prefer the Theravadan orthodoxy. We want to be disciples of the Buddha, right? Who cares if we are Theravadins or what? That's not so important. And so are the Sautrantikas right? Or are the Theravadins right in this ancient discussion? And I would say, reading the suttas, the Sautrantikas look more right, because there's a lot of evidence in the suttas that intermediate states are part of the rebirth process. One of the most powerful suttas is in the Samyutta Nikaya 44, number 9. It is, which Samyutta is that again? Abhyakata Sutta or something like that? Samyutta, not sure. 44. Yeah? Yeah? Undeclared, right, exactly, that's what I thought. Yeah, okay, thank you, Ananda. Ananda has to come to every retreat. We cannot be without him. He has a place over there with Ananda on the seat. Is Kutahal, is it? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay. And this is a discussion, I think, between the wanderer Vacchagotta and the Buddha. And the wanderer Vacchagotta asks the Buddha, he asks him, well, what happens after the person has died, but before they are reborn? Yeah, what is it that supports the mind or supports consciousness at that time, after death, but before rebirth? Okay, obviously, yeah, we're here looking at something special. And the Buddha says that just like a flame is supported, when the flame is kind of thrown up into the air, is supported by the wind, in the same way, the consciousness is supported by craving between death and the moment of rebirth. So that is kind of obvious. The Buddha is saying that there is a moment, time between that. And once you start reading the suttas, that opens your eyes, you start reading the suttas, actually there's quite a bit of evidence for the idea of an intermediate existence. For example, the Buddha talks about this life, the next life, and in between both. Kind of sounds like in between both, sounds like intermediate existence, yeah? Antara ubayena, ubayen antara. So I think that once you know this, and then you kind of hear about modern research in near-death experience and these kind of things, yeah, that also seems to be, that's what it looks like in intermediate existence. Yeah, you kind of go out of you go to some strange place. Oop, my body is down there. I'm up here. What's going on? And if I cross that line over there, I can't come back again. Sounds a bit like intermediate existence as well. So I think this is. It matters, and it matters a lot, because if you follow the traditional Abhidhamma way or Theravada way, that the last moment of mind in this life and then the immediate next mind moment is in your next life, that is a traditional way of the commentaries in the Theravada tradition, not the suttas but the commentaries, then of course the last mind moment becomes incredibly important, yeah? If your last mind moment is anger, and then the next one is your next life, you're likely to be born angry. Yeah, straight away, angry right away. It's a bad idea. You can imagine you go to a bad state if you're angry from the starting point, yeah? But that doesn't really fit very well with the way that the suttas talk about this, because the suttas is all about karma that decides your rebirth. And that fits very well with the idea of reviewing your life. Yeah, you see your whole life, and you see all the things you have done, the good things, the bad things, and then you kind of make up a judgment about yourself, and you think, yeah, pretty good. Okay, I deserve to go to heaven. Bang, you go to heaven. Yeah. Or if it's kind of a bad, oh no, this was not so good. Oh, what is going to happen now? And then who knows where you're going to get reborn? Yeah, when that happens. That makes much more sense to me. It fits with this idea of karma being the driving force behind rebirth. And so I don't think is necessary to be an orthodox Theravadan. That's not what, to my mind, what we are here about. We are here to be disciples of the Buddha. Whatever the Buddha said, that's the truth. We don't need to hold on too much to tradition. We should hold on to the teaching of the Buddha. That's the most important thing. And that teaching happens very handily to be available in the Pali Canon pretty much. That's kind of really, really, really nice. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. And anyway, let's carry on. Dear Ajahn, I'm a bit perplexed between the practice of sustained attention versus the focus on the breath versus open awareness, being a passenger on the bus. If I'm doing open awareness, then sustained attention will never be still enough for deep focus. Yes, can you elaborate to dispel my confusion, please? I will be leaping for joy. Okay, I'm going to look out for who's going to leaping here. So it is a sequential thing. So you start off with the open awareness. You start off, that is kind of allowing mindfulness to arise. That comes first. That's kind of the idea here. So you wait, you allow that whatever mindfulness you have already, you allow that to deepen. And it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. That's kind of the idea here. Waiting, allowing things to die down. And that's why I say you kind of almost like you're waiting for the breath to become clear enough so you can actually follow the breath. That's the idea. Once the breath kind of is there, fairly clear, not distracted by too many thoughts, the breath kind of comes to you, as I like to say, as I learned from Ajahn Brahmali. Then the focusing happens, and it should happen naturally. It shouldn't be something that you do so much, but happens naturally. You just want to watch the breath. The breath is quite nice. The breath is quite peaceful. You are aware anyway, so you might as well be aware of the breath rather than being aware of other things. And then that sustained attention comes out of that awareness, out of the mindfulness. And this follows the normal process on the Noble Eightfold Path, where you have the Samma Sati, the right mindfulness, always coming before Samma Samadhi, right stillness. One thing leading to another one. And it leads through the process of mindfulness of breathing. That is the process that allows this to happen. So you establish mindfulness. This is what it says at the beginning of the Anapanasati Sutta. Satting parimukkang upatapetva, having established mindfulness in front. That point begins the process of Anapanasati that then leads you all the way to Samadhi. Establish mindfulness first, then go through the process, then you come to Samma Samadhi. And that process is this beautiful process of stillness and joy becoming more and more and more powerful. That is how it works. That's the idea. Okay, any leaps of joy? No, please, no need to leap of joy. You can you can do that in private in your kuti room afterwards. Dear Ajahn, how can I be less attracted to my physical appearance? Should I stop looking in the mirror? It gives me some form of pleasure to see myself as attractive, and I'm not sure how to change this perception. Thank you, Ajahn. Yes, of course it does give you some pleasure to see yourself as attractive. Of course, that's kind of obvious. That's why people like to look at themselves in the mirror. Should you stop looking yourself in the mirror? Maybe you can reduce it a little bit. Sometimes it may be necessary. Whatever sometimes it may be required for whatever reasons. But you can maybe reduce it and see what happens. It may make you less self-conscious, if you do that. Suddenly you don't really think about yourself so much more anymore. And being less self-conscious is very nice. Being self-conscious is a kind of, it's not free, it's like a state of not being free when you're self-conscious. You are trapped in a certain perception, which is not very nice. So reducing self-consciousness is always a good idea. So, but you do want to reduce that sense of being attracted to your own appearance because it is not sustainable. It's going to change. Things are going to happen to you over time. It's not really sustainable, and eventually it's going to be silly. And so, this is why this idea of the four element meditation can be useful. You kind of see yourself arising out of these 4 elements. You come into this body, you become this person, you get shaped according to these 4 elements, and then that 4 elements, the body changes. You can see the change in yourself, and fast forward motion, becoming older, growing up, getting old, gradually decaying, becoming very old, and then you die and everything goes back into the ground again. Yeah? And it's very peaceful if you do that, because you see it, and it's not very pleasant to see. Seeing yourself getting old and dying in fast motion like that, guarantee you it will actually detach you a little bit from the attraction to the body. Guaranteed. To see if you can use something like that. Yeah? This is one way of using the 4-element contemplation. Yeah? To see something, kind of incorporates old age and death and elements and everything in one go kind of meditation. You can play around a bit like that, whatever works for you. Okay, next one. I'm glad people ask such honest questions. Yeah, it's great, because this is the reality for many people. It's good that we kind of say it as it is. So thank you for being honest and saying things as they are. Can jhana, stream entry, enlightenment be obtained if virtue is lacking, i.e., is it a prerequisite? If so, what level of virtue is required? Or must one be free of vice or sin, as Jesus supposedly was? I'm not sure if Jesus can become enlightened, because I think, I shouldn't say this, but Jesus had wrong view. You know that? Jesus he was into God and that kind of stuff. That's a problem from a Buddhist point of view. So he probably was a nice guy, but I mean, it's still some limits there. Anyway, so can be it obtained if virtue is lacking? The point is, you need to have a pure mind. Yeah? The point is, to be able to enter a deep state of samadhi, your mind has to be fully purified. No defilements can be in your mind. This means all the 5 hindrances have to be abandoned. How are you going to abandon those 5 hindrances? You can do it out of faith in the Buddha. Yeah? You kind of contemplate the Buddha, and it can give a very powerful sense. And maybe you can temporarily overcome the 5 hindrances that way. Even if you have some dodgy virtue, maybe, yeah, it's possible. But in general, if you want to purify the mind, the best way to do that is to start with general virtue, yeah, to be kind, to not do bad things. You will tend to feel more purified within if you do it that way. And then if you feel more purified through doing the kind of ordinary right speech, right action, then you can also move on to purify your mind. Yeah, so there is a natural progress here. How pure does a virtue have to be to do this? It's kind of one of those unfathomable questions. I don't know if the answer to that one. But the idea is that you have to be pure within. Otherwise, you cannot enter a jhana state. If there's any impurity inside, impossible to enter jhana. That is really the critical thing. Then you can decide how that purity arises. So look at yourself, and then you will start to understand the extent to which purity or virtue is a prerequisite. And then also you need right view on top of that, and then you are in business. Okay, dear Ajahn, yesterday you mentioned that the cause of ignorance is the 5 hindrances. Independent origination, old age, and death precede ignorance. It precedes dukkha, or it precedes old age and death precedes ignorance. Or you mean in the sense of a cycle? Please forgive my ignorance, but can you please elaborate on the above? In dependent origination, old age and death is what stands in for dukkha at the end. Yeah, that's the end of the sequence. Ignorance is at the beginning. So it's not really true that old age and death precede ignorance. What precedes ignorance is the 5 hindrances. And if you go to the sutta I mentioned, which is Anguttara Nikaya 1061, the Avidya Sutta, the sutta on ignorance, as it happens, or delusion, that's what it says in there. So death and old age do not necessarily precede ignorance. The Buddha got old and died, but there was no ignorance. Yeah, so that depends on the circumstances. But 5 hindrances definitely precedes ignorance. Dear Ajahn, much gratitude for your wonderful teachings. Yesterday you mentioned about the jhanas leading to recollection of past lives. There are many anecdotes about past lives regression and people remembering their past lives, but do you actually know of someone now or in the past who could look into many past lives after emerging, coming out, after entering into the jhanas? Many thanks. Do I know of anyone who actually did remember their past lives? Not sure what to say to that, answer to that question. I think the answer is basically yes. Yeah, but I don't really want to say any details because it will become difficult. But the answer is it's actually not that uncommon for people to see past lives. Whether it is the full past life experience according to the jhanas or not, that's another interesting question, because it's quite common in monastic circle for monks to say they have seen past lives. It's not that uncommon. But whether how often that is because of the full jhana experience, or it is more like just an emerging of ideas and pictures in the mind, that is actually quite difficult sometimes to untangle. And so I don't really know the full answer to that. But in general, the answer is yes. Okay, dear Ajahn, thank you for all the inspiring teachings. Could you kindly advise how we can increase loving kindness towards others? How do we remind ourselves that everyone deserves loving kindness? Thank you. So you have to see the good qualities in others. Who are the people in the world that your friends in the world? How do you feel about your friends? What is the difference between a friend and an enemy? And usually a friend is someone you appreciate the good qualities of. That is not the case for an enemy. An enemy is someone you do not appreciate the bad qualities of. That's the enemy. So that gives you an idea of how to increase loving kindness. Look for the good qualities in other people. See the beauty in the generosity, the kindness. It's amazing the people who come here and deliver food here every day. I'm always amazed at that. They don't even get the benefit of the retreat. They just drive all that way, bring food for 60 people, drive all the way, do all the shopping. It takes them hours and hours and hours. Very expensive. And coming all this way is like, wow, it's just extraordinary here. And I hope and I think it will bring them a lot of happiness to do that. And then they are on the right track. So look at those people and think, wow, how fortunate we are to have that kind of support. Or look at everyone here who comes here and lives like this for 9 days, giving up so many things just to do. Other people think we are crazy, right, to do this kind of things. But actually, I think we are the wise ones and they are the crazy ones. They have got no idea what they're missing out on. And so appreciate these things, see the good qualities in others. And as you start to rejoice and appreciate the good qualities of others, you start having these warm feelings toward them, friendliness, love if you like, that you have towards other people. And so that is how loving kindness emerges out from seeing the goodness in others and appreciating that. One of the things when I did the little meditation before is like you try out different perceptions. That's why you try out, human beings, devas, monastics. Actually, we are also human beings, but you know what I mean. Animals, right? And you try the various things because it gives you a little bit of different viewpoints, and you can start to see what works for you, where these emotions start to arise, how they arise. Or you can try the other way of doing loving kindness meditation, where you focus just on individuals instead, like someone you respect, and to stay with that person. May you be happy and well. Keep on repeating it and see what happens. So, but I started off by reminding you, what are really good spiritual qualities? What is this? Remember that there are lots of people in the world like that. This builds up this beautiful perception of good people in the world. This is how this works. And everyone else, the people who are not so easy to have metta towards, especially the difficult ones. I talked quite at length today about the idea of compassion, for difficult people, and that is very similar to the idea of loving kindness. The difference isn't that great. And so you have loving kindness, and then you have compassion, and then you have that for everyone in the world. All right, dear Ajahn, please define or give more examples of sensual pleasures. When you mentioned relationships, is it a sexual relationship? As there are spiritual happiness in relationships too. Thank you, Ajahn. So, sensual pleasures means any interest in the world of the five senses. It is incredibly broad, really, really broad. So everything we do, I mean, right now, if you enjoy the kind of the atmosphere or even just the look of this room, the lights or whatever, that is a kind of refined sensual pleasure. If you walk in the forest and you enjoy the forest, it's a kind of sensual pleasure. If you enjoy the food, that's a kind of sensual pleasure. If you enjoy entertainment, it's kind of sensual pleasure. So there's many kind of aspects to this. A relationship with another person is many things. It's a kind of a mixture of things coming together. It is a friendship. It is maybe a sexual aspect to it. There is maybe a spiritual aspect to it. There's many kind of things coming together in one go, in a sense. That's why relationships can become very entangling, and attachments can be very strong because of many things coming together. But the general idea in Buddhism is, so the entire world of the five senses, so it's incredibly difficult to let go of because we are so immersed in this. This is kind of almost our entire experience is the world of the five senses. You wake up in the morning, you go to bed at night, and pretty much everything you experience is that world. The only difference may be when you do something spiritual, like an act of generosity or kindness, and you feel some joy, that is a kind of spiritual feeling, or you meditate a bit or whatever. And so what we need to do is we need to abandon the interest in the world of the five senses gradually, stage by stage. And the first thing to do is then to abandon the immoral aspect of that. Don't do anything immoral within that world. That's why we have things like the five precepts. And then you kind of abandon, after a while, you see, actually, it is disturbing to do all of these kind of things in the sensual world. Why do I watch so many movies on Netflix or whatever? Because this is kind of very destructive sometimes of mindfulness, if you see too much of that sort of entertainment. Okay, instead of seeing so and so many hours, I'll kind of half my consumption of Netflix or whatever, whatever it might be. And so you, this is how you kind of gradually, and then you kind of have a degree of restraint, because of that, because you see that actually it's not very useful. And then in this way, you kind of gradually move away from that world. You remind yourself some of the contemplations I've been talking about on this retreat, how unreliable that world is, how uncertain it is. And if you hold on to that world, you're going to be very disappointed down the track. This is like a kind of this broad kind of canvas idea of the world, where you kind of take in all aspects of the world in one go, and you gradually lose interest, and you come more and more to the spiritual path. So this is what this means. So yes, relationships are more than just sexual things. They are much more than that, and still there are often attachments in them, regardless, and those attachments can still be problematic. There is even then there can still be a kind of a sensual aspect or an attachment aspect that is can still be detrimental to the spiritual practice. Okay, dear Ajahn, since eating meat directly or indirectly contributes to animals being slaughtered and thus to their suffering for the sake of our sensory guttural delights, shouldn't we refrain from eating meat? Please share your insight in this. Thank you. P.S. The animals thank you too, I think. Okay. We'll see. We will ask Teddy afterwards what Teddy says about this. What does Teddy say about does he have anything to say? Teddy? Or is that Teddy bear or is it lion? Is it lion? Is it lion? Whoa, I just insulted the lion. You should never insult a lion, right? That's kind of the first. This is kind of the jungle, ancient jungle saying, be careful about insulting the lions, you'll be in trouble. So meat eating. So yes, I think that it is. I think it's good to reduce meat eating. I tend to agree with that. I pretty much never eat meat myself. Occasionally I might eat it if I'm invited to a house and all the service meat. I might actually do it in those cases, but generally I don't do it. I think it's a good idea. I do eat fish, however, and sometimes I do feel a bit bad about eating fish. If you see what fish are treated like in the world, it is not good. So it is not a good idea. So ideally I should stop that as well. I would agree with that. So I would say that for anyone who wants to stop eating meat, I would certainly encourage you to and say yes, it's a good idea. And it is good for, I think, many, many different reasons. Animal suffering is one of them, but I think there are many other good reasons as well, for reducing meat consumption, even just climate change or whatever. All of these things are good reasons for that. It is not compulsory, however, to do that on the Buddhist path, neither as a monastic nor as a layperson. So I would say it is an individual choice, and those people who want to eat meat, it is your choice at the end of the day, although I am supportive of vegetarian diet. Okay, what does the line say? Lions are not vegetarians, are they? They are a bad example there. They're problematic. Okay, so that is all the questions from yesterday. So now let us... actually, this question is also from yesterday, so I'll do this one as well. If permissible, there is a question this is from one of the partners of one of the people on the retreat, actually. I also have a cat, and whenever I sit meditating during Ajahn Sujato's guided meditation, the cat always comes to sit on my lap. He seems to sleep peacefully when I meditate. Do you think he will have a chance to be reborn as a human being in his next life? It sounds good. Yeah, it sounds like this cat probably has some kind of the right kind of ideas. If it is attracted to meditation, so maybe that is a good sign. So we will just have to do some chanting when the cat dies and wish him best in his next life and see what happens. Uncertain, I would say. That's kind of the bottom line. Okay. Let us move on. Wow, so many questions. Okay, I'm going to have to go fast, just warning you, because there's so many questions, and I have promised to go all the way to the end. I can guarantee you we're going to go a bit over time. If you feel tired, you want to leave, of course, please leave at any time. That has been true throughout the retreat, and it's even more true today, because today is going to be longer than usual. Dear Ajahn Brahmali, the heartfelt gratitude for Ajahns marvelous, marvelous teachings. It is so joyful and delightful to listen to the Sutta explanations. We are so blessed. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Perhaps Ajahn could consider extending a 10-day to 14-day retreat once a year. The something forgotten suttas, the corner forgotten, okay, whatever. To cover the forgotten suttas, I see. Also extending my own sincere gratitude to Leha, to Nolia, to Patricia and Christina for their tireless efforts for making the retreat possible and comfortable in every possible way for all to practice. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Wishing everyone here to progress in the Dhamma path in search of the noble, supreme spiritual bliss of Nibbana. May all be happy and well with much metta. So this is actually, I forgot about this. The last day, always you get lots of these kind of questions. Yeah, so the last day is often the best one. You get all these nice things. So maybe we will go, not take so much time. Let's see what happens there. So I put that one to one side over there. Okay. Dear Ajahn, thank you for the wonderful retreat experience. It is indeed remarkably powerful. Your teaching is mind-blowing. Yeah, do you mean that literally or metaphorically? Be careful what you say. You are in. Thank you, Ajahn Brahm, for initiating this retreat. Thank you, everyone, who contributes from the beginning to these facilities. Thank you, Christina, Leha, Nolia, and Pat. Thank you, fellow retreatants. Thank you, and much merit for all the Dana offer persons. Thank you, Christina, for online Dhamma. Dhamma. Thank you, gardening team. Yeah, that's true. The gardening team have a bit more work now because the lawn is proving anicca, impermanent outside. So that's what happens with the lawns. The lawns are impermanent. And it's always nice because when you see something like that outside, actually what you're seeing is impermanence in action. Yeah, you see the lawn being churned up by the electric car. Yeah, so it's good. It's good that happened because it gave us a lesson in impermanence. It's no one's fault. It's just impermanence in action. Impermanence happens in all kinds of ways. This is one way. Anyway, cleaning team and maintenance team who provided your services here. Excellent. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, dear Ajahn, if a person is afflicted with Alzheimer's and dementia, I'm wondering how the 5 khandhas will operate. Okay, they will not operate at their best, that's for sure. Will their compromised ability to contemplate, perceive, make choices, etc., as a healthy person impact on their accumulated fruits of karma? Is there anything that a carer could do to help them not accumulate negative karma? Thank you, with respect. I don't think it is. They make very much bad karma because they don't really know what they're doing. Their intentions are not clear. They are not sure what is happening, and so I think the amount of bad karma they do is very minimal. So I would not be too concerned about that. What can you do to help them? Just be kind to them. I think sometimes we underestimate what kindness does to someone with Alzheimer's. They may not directly remember the kindness, but I think very often under the surface they will still feel that. It will still remain with them somehow as a positive impression. The mind will be able to receive it behind all that, behind the brain, which is kind of very ill in a very terrible state. There will still be some transfer of that kindness, I think. So kindness is always the right way, and kindness will optimize their life. And then as they come to their death, the mind gets released from the Alzheimer, the clarity, mindfulness, bang, comes back again. Wow, what happened? What happened to the last 10 years? Okay, now I'm back here again. So that is, I think, the right way to deal with that. Dear Ajahn Brahmali, can you please spell out the name of that sutta or give a reference number in which you briefly introduced and said if someone was abusing you but you just stand there and not retaliate, then they may realize the wrongness in their actions. Thank you. I didn't really mean that there was a sutta specifically about that. The closest you come is a sutta where the Buddha was abused. The Buddha abused, and he does not react to the abuse. And he says to the abuser, he says afterwards, "Oh, I don't receive any of your abuse. You can keep that abuse for yourself." And then he says, has a nice simile. The simile is that, well, if you have a dinner party, you have all the guests coming, and there's food left over, who does it belong to? It belongs to me, says the fellow. Okay, in the same way, the abuse belongs to you. And so this is the Akosaka Bharadvaja Sutta in, I think, the Brahmana Samyutta or something like that. Am I asking too much, Ananda, this time?
It is
Somewhere in 7, Brahmana Samyutta, right?
number 3.
Maybe number 3? Okay, so check it out. They call the Akosaka Bharadvaja Sutta, so the Bharadvaja, the abusive one, or something like that. That's basically what it means. So somewhere there. So the Brahmana Samyutta is the 7th Samyutta. So in the Samyutta Nikaya. So I guess that's the best I can do for you right now with the help of Ananda. Okay. Dear Ajahn Brahmali, you spoke about people tending to be good, otherwise they would not be reborn as human beings. I know we have touched on this subject in Q&A already, but I'm curious at what point the decision is made that someone will not be reborn as human. Thinking about someone like Hitler, for example, will any previous good karma they have created be their saving grace from being demoted to a lower existence? Does it have something to do with the level and type of energy in the stream of consciousness at the time of their death? with much gratitude and appreciation for your insight and teaching. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. It is like an overview, of it's kind of all the accumulated actions coming together at the moment when you die. It's like this is kind of the idea of the life review and these kind of things we were talking about just before. You have that life review, and when you have that life review, you are able to make some kind of, you kind of judge yourself, and then that throws you in that direction, whatever conclusion you come to during that life review. So if you have a mix of good and bad karma, if you have made a lot of good karma, then the bad karma will have less ability to issue forth and become fruitful, because the good karma will kind of restrain the bad karma, and the good karma will be in charge, and that will lead to a good rebirth. So generally speaking, make lots of good karma, the chances of a bad rebirth are very small. But if someone makes a lot of bad karma, then the chances of a bad rebirth are very high if they haven't got much good karma. So in the case of Hitler, I don't know Hitler personally, maybe just as well. I would guess that he made a lot of bad karma. It seems very, very likely that he would have very hard time having a good rebirth after what he did. Seems very unlikely. Is it absolutely impossible? Don't know. I have no idea. I think in his case, probably it's very close to impossible. But again, it's kind of difficult to say. And this is what you find in one of the suttas that touch on this whole idea of where you get reborn, is the Mahakamma Vibhanga Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, number 136. First of all, you have the Chula Kamma Vibhanga Sutta, the shorter discourse on the analysis of karma. And that is very kind of stereotypical ideas of karma. If you kill someone, you get a short life, or you get reborn in a bad destination. If you steal, you become poor in the future, or you get reborn in a bad destination. Kind of stereotypical way of thinking about karma. But then comes the next sutta, which is the Mahakamma Vibhanga Sutta, the greater sutta on the analysis of karma. And it kind of broadens out these pictures. And it shows that just because you have done bad actions in this life does not necessarily mean you go to a bad destination, because previous life's actions can also fruit at that time, and so you can still be reborn in a good destination even though you have lived a kind of bad life. It is less likely, it may be very unlikely, but it is possible, and so that's where the uncertainty is. And so the best safeguard against not being reborn in a bad realm is basically to live as well as you possibly can. Make lots of good karma, be kind, be caring, be generous, be compassionate, be goody-goody. Don't be goody-goody, that sounds kind of negative. Be good, be a good person, have a good heart. That's what it comes down to. And avoid all the bad things. That's really the final say in what's going to happen afterwards. And the energy of the stream of consciousness, yes, there is a kind of energy. The mind will have a certain inclination. And you can find out to a large extent what that inclination is when you meditate. Where does your mind move when you do meditation practice? Does it move towards happiness and peace? Or does it move towards regret and remorse? Is it bright or is it dark? What does your mind feel like? Sometimes the darkness can come from depression, and depression is not necessarily a thing that will lead to a bad rebirth as such, because depression may just be, you're kind of thinking about things in the wrong way. But if you are not depressed, but you feel kind of still some darkness inside, that could be the result of bad karma or having done some bad things. You know what it's like when you feel remorse. It's a kind of a dark state of mind. It's not nice. And so you want to avoid that. So the tendency of the mind, that's what leads you to rebirth. Where the mind moves at the time when you die will be similar to where the mind moves when you go into meditation. Dear Ajahn, last night you seemed to say that there wasn't much advantage to deep meditation by maintaining awareness during the day. I read somewhere that this was highly recommended by some famous Kubra Ajahns, and therefore thought it was important to do so. Have I misunderstood? Should I maintain present moment awareness during the day or not bother? Thank you. It's good to have present moment awareness during the day, but for the right reason. And it is often not taught properly. Yeah, have present moment awareness, and then it is as if that in itself is enough. But no, use that present moment awareness for its purpose, and its purpose is to purify your mind. That is the point of having present moment awareness. The way Sati Sampajanya is described in the suttas, it is you have Sati Sampajanya. Sati is mindfulness, Sampajanya is like full awareness or whatever, yeah, or clear awareness. There's a wisdom aspect in that awareness. Yeah, so the point of that is it is often taught in the context of monastic life. Yeah, so when you go into the village, you have full awareness of that. When you return from the village, you have full awareness of that. This is in the context of alms round. When you receive alms food, you have full awareness of that. Yeah, when you go back, you have full awareness of that. And the point here, the idea of this full awareness, is that you remember the purpose of why you're doing it. Yeah, you do it for the right purpose. In other words, you avoid defilements and negative states arising in the mind. And so this is what this really is about, to avoid defilements and bad states in the mind. That's why you want to have full awareness in daily life. But just being aware for the sake of awareness itself, okay, angry, yeah, that is not really angry, okay, I better do something about it. That's the right way. And so you catch yourself, yeah, before the ill will arises, before the ridiculous desire arises, and then you are purifying yourself. It is virtue and right view that is the foundation of meditation. Always in the suttas, virtue and right view. And full awareness in daily life is a support for those two things, virtue and right view. And then indirectly it becomes a support for meditation. There's a formula in the suttas for the sati sampajanya that occurs again and again in the suttas, in the gradual training especially. Okay. Dear Ajahn, okay. Thanks heaps for inspiring teachings. Lots of merit for you. Thank a lot to Leiha. That's a nice version of your name, Leiha. Leiha. Christina Nolia Pat, for looking after all of us selflessly. May you be able to realize Dhamma in this very life. May all of you be healthy and happy always. Teruang Saranai. Teruang Saranai is the kind of Sri Lankan way of greeting. So, good. Okay. This morning you said that consciousness can't exist without an object, for example, as provided by the senses. When we are dead, the senses no longer function. So how is there a stream of consciousness leading to our next life? So the answer is that the senses operate even in the fine material body. Yeah. So this is why if you look at something like a near-death experience, people will have kind of, the body will be there, they will be over here. If you take this thing seriously, that is, if you don't take it seriously, it's not going to do much to you. But if you take this idea seriously, you can still see afterwards. Yeah, the mind also has the ability to somehow see and somehow relate to that world through those same things. And you then have a fine material eye instead of the kind of the coarse material eye of the body. It is still there. But even if all the five senses go, there is still the mind. Yeah, the mind is still there. And so because the mind is there and the stream of consciousness is an aspect of the mind, yeah, that mind itself has an object. What is the object of that mind? Well, whatever you're thinking about, or the bliss of meditation, yeah, or whatever is in the mind at that time. That is part of the mind stream of consciousness. And so there is always an object, even if there is not an object of the five senses. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, next one. Dear Ajahn, you mentioned that all beings don't get liberated. I don't know, I have no idea. Maybe not. Given that there are very few who do get liberated, probably, I'm not sure, but let's say, what happens to the trillion other beings when the world cycle comes to an end? Many thanks. So actually this is talked about in the suttas, which is interesting. And it says that when the universe is kind of amazing what actually is found in these suttas. And one of the things it says in there is that when the universe comes to an end and the cycle kind of collapses, it says that beings for the most part go to the abhasara loka. And the abhasara loka is basically the equivalent of the second jhana realm. So it looks like you kind of hang out in the second jhana realm for a while. When the world collapses, that's where you go. Maybe there are beings who don't go there. It says for the most part, yebuyena is the Pali word, for the most part. So maybe there are some who don't go there. I think this is in the Chakkavatisyanada Sutta, maybe. It talks about these world expansions. Or maybe it is in the Ganya Sutta. Anyway, it's one of those suttas that talks more about the mythological and large scales of the universe. So maybe you get a kind of holiday in the Abhasara world. It looks a bit like that. And then when the world kind of starts to expand again, it comes back again, then you have a chance to be reborn, and you get kind of reborn down the various realms. First of all, the Brahma's mansion, and as the world kind of forms, you can be reborn in a variety of ways. So that's what happens. So it's not as if you stop existing. Then the new world cycle starts. So this is the problem with the world. This is one of the ideas of this cyclical time. Universes come and go according to Buddhism, and I often wonder, when is science going to catch up with Buddhism? Universes come and go. Science says there is a Big Bang, and they're still wondering what happened before the Big Bang. When are they kind of realize that there was another universe before? I predict they will find one day that there was another universe before. That's what I predict. Maybe because I'm very kind of, maybe I have too much faith in the Buddha. I don't know, but that's what I say, because if the Buddha said that's the case, then I think it is very likely to be the case. Anyway, the whole idea of things not having any beginning, to me, is a very kind of sensible way of thinking about the world. Okay. Okay. Dear Ajahn, you mentioned today that karma vipaka only small part of pain and afflictions, mostly due to human form. But isn't being human also detrimental by your karma? So it all comes back to karma, really. Thank you. Yes, that is true. So you could say that being reborn as a human has a certain amount of bad pains built into it. So you have made the karma to be reborn as a human, and then that means that you have to experience the pain. So in that sense, it is true in the broader sense of things. But you cannot say that specific things in your life are due to specific karma in the past. I lost my job because I fired someone in my past life. That is not necessarily the case. And then how do you stop getting fired in your next life? Is because you don't fire anyone in this life. That is too simplistic. And that's not how it works. But that's how many people seem to think that karma works. Specific actions in the past lead to specific results in this life. But in the broader context, yes, you are right. Dear Ajahn, during meditation, if I observe like a taxi passenger, I am totally passive and sometimes lose focus that way to keep myself focused. I feel it is necessary to be slightly active, like counting breaths, to avoid dozing off. What are your thoughts on this, Ajahn? My thoughts are, if it works, great. If you are able to count the breath and you make some progress with that, remember it is not just about avoiding dozing off. This is not a contest in staying awake. So it's good. If you doze off, it's okay. We will forgive you if you snore in this room. It's not a problem. Please snore a little bit if you are tired or whatever it might be. And sometimes you come out of that tiredness and you find, bang, your mind kind of becomes really bright and nice as a consequence afterwards. So okay, doze off a little bit. But more important is actually whether you make real progress. So if you are counting the breath, do you find that your mindfulness gets established? Do you find that you actually achieve clarity of the mind? Do you find that eventually maybe some joy and happiness even arises in your mind? That is what counts. But if you are just struggling to count your breath and it doesn't really lead anywhere, then you may have to do something else to establish stronger mindfulness first. So very important to ask yourself whether it actually works or not in the broader scale of things. And then if it works, then it is okay. Then you're on the right track. In the long run, giving rise to mindfulness comes from the overall development of all the factors on the path. Yeah? So all the factors coming together, mindfulness will gradually build up as a consequence. And then over time, this will happen. The meditation happens automatically. Yeah? Dear Ajahn Brahmali, thank you so much for your deep and profound teachings. I have learned so much from this retreat and can feel the difference in my meditation practice. Wow, that is wonderful to hear. Very happy to hear that. I would also like to thank Lehar, Pat, Norla, and Christina for all your support in making this retreat a success. Much gratitude to all and metta. Great, so that's wonderful. So another nice note of gratitude. Good evening, Ajahn. Thank you for another great Sutta retreat, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. In relation to causes and conditions, does causes mean fruits of your karma? Thanks. Causes usually means the karma, not the fruits, right? So the causes are the karma, the fruits are the results of those causes. So karma is the cause, and the fruit is the result. Sometimes we use these words a little bit wrongly in contemporary society. People say, that's my karma, when they really should say, that's my fruit. If you say, that's my fruit, people wonder, what are you talking about, right? So it doesn't really work. But that's really what they should say here. That's my fruit. No, that's my fruit. Keep your hands off. You can see how that can lead to kind of unfortunate circumstances. So cause and conditions basically means karma, and it means other things as well. It means habits, So whatever habits you have in this life come from habits in the past life. It is not just about karma and fruit, it's also about habits. Sometimes people say that karma and habits are the same thing, like your habits is your karma. But actually it's not exactly the same thing, because karma has the potential to give rise to happy and painful results. So karma is always to do with intention, good or bad intentions. Whereas habits can be things like being a fireman in one life, and so you want to become a fireman in the next life. That's just a habit. Karmically, there's no karma involved with that. So there is kind of a mixture of things going on in terms of habits and karma. Okay. Dear Ajahn Brahmali, thank you very much for your wonderful teachings for the past 8 nights. It has certainly been excellent and an excellent and fine night indeed. You're referring to the Bad Ekaratta Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 131, which is a sutta I would recommend all of you to read. One fortunate night. It's a beautiful little verse on how to practice for one good night, and then it has an explanation afterwards. Maybe we should bring that sutta back again on these retreats. I have taught it in the past. Last night, as I lay down to sleep, there was a bright, round light that felt like it was shining into my eyes. I know it was not the room light, as the light felt too bright and warm, like sunlight, and found this strange as the last meditation section before the evening Q&A. And so it couldn't have been a nimitta, right? I did have a peaceful sit in the course of the day. Please advise. I found this strange as the last meditation was before the evening Q&A. Okay, now I'm so sorry, I read it out a bit wrongly. I did have a peaceful sit in the course of the day. Please advise. So that sounds to me like you had something beautiful happening to your mind. Yeah, this sounds to me like this is a classic example of some nimitta. It's bright and warm, and presumably there was some joy and happiness coming with it, presumably. And if that was the case, then it is probably what Ajahn Brahmali would call a samadhi nimitta, and the suttas called the obhasa and rupa. That's what it sounds like to me. Yeah, even though you had a good sit before the Q&A, yeah, it means that if the Q&A didn't kind of cause you to be upset or whatever, but it was enjoyable or happy, then these things can come back again very quickly afterwards. Yeah, so that is quite possible. So that is great. I'm really happy to hear this. I did have a peaceful sit in the course of the day, so please advise. And I couldn't sleep much. Yeah, okay, that's another kind of classic example of that for the rest of the night. So it sounds good. So that's wonderful. Now the job is not to hold on to it, and to kind of just let it go and never expect to have a retreat for the rest of your life. And sorry, a nimitta for the rest of your life. And because you have to let go of these things. And when you let go of them and you just put in the causes and you allow whatever happened to happen, maybe next time things will be a bit different. So expecting things is always a bad idea because you don't, that kind of blocks out other opportunities from happening. So always just have an open mind. Go into the fresh mind, Zen mind, beginner's mind, as that book from the 1970s had it. Many thanks also go to Leha, Norlia, Pat, Christina, Tim, and the lovely retreatants. Burr making this an enjoyable, for making this an enjoyable retreat. Also to the wonderful dana givers. I think I put on 2 kilograms during these 8 days. Okay, that's probably a good sign. So we will say that. Okay, excellent. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Venerable Sir, my greatest gift to the world is maintaining sila and reducing the defilements as much as possible in my stream of consciousness. Question mark. Thank you. So is my greatest gift. So good. I would say yes. The greatest gift to the world is, of course, becoming an arahant, becoming enlightened. That's the greatest gift to the world, because then you become a powerful example and you become a potential teacher and all of these kind of things. But your greatest gift to the world is to take this path as far as you possibly can. The further you take the path, the greater the gift will be. So just carry on, do your best. Don't look for results, put in causes. There's light in the end of the tunnel. That's good. So, okay, this is interesting. Okay, good. So, dear Ajahn, can't thank you enough for your teachings. As someone fairly new to Theravada, your Sutta classes were all I needed. Wow, great, wonderful. From the teachings, I struggle to grasp the concept that awareness is also not permanent and stable during one's life. In this case, does awareness also arise and fade away? If so, is samadhi a place without awareness? Okay, so awareness does arise and pass away. Yeah, the point is that awareness is so fast and it is so quick and it kind of happens so quickly that it's impossible to see the arising and passing away of awareness unless you have an incredibly peaceful mind, and then you can see it. And what in fact you see is not so much the arising and passing away of awareness, because that is impossible to see, because the only thing that could see the arising and passing away of awareness is awareness itself. The fact that you are lacking awareness means that you can't really see it. But what you can see the shifting of awareness from one sense to the other one. And you can see that there is no connection between the different senses. And then you can infer that awareness stops, another one arises, because it's a completely different kind of awareness. So samadhi is a place with awareness. Samadhi is a place where there is only one type of awareness, the mind awareness, and that awareness lasts unchangingly for an hour, 2 hours, a day, whatever it is. Yeah, that is samadhi. And then when you come out, then the other sense awarenesses arise again, and then you lose that awareness of the mind that was there. Yeah, so that is a very stable kind of awareness, whereas usually during ordinary life, awareness is very unstable and changing all the time. That is the basic idea. Dear Ajahn, thank you for all the wonderful teachings. A question. Why does Bohemian Rhapsody keep playing in my mind since I arrived here? I was wondering if anyone else has experienced the same thing. Everyone is hearing Bohemian Rhapsody. So I'm sure that there are other people also who sometimes have music playing through your mind. It's very common. Yeah, it's conditioned into you. You have heard these things many times before, and so they come back. They play themselves in your mind, and the reason is because you want a bit of entertainment. Yeah, that's basically the idea. It gets a bit boring on the retreat, nothing happening. Okay, let's listen to Bohemian Rhapsody instead. Yeah, and it comes up in your mind. It is because you want it. You incline there. You actually desire to hear it. That's why it arises. And it's okay. Don't worry about it. Yeah? Let it be. Don't try to get rid of it. If you try to get rid of it, it becomes just louder. You hear it even more. Yeah? It kind of takes revenge on you if you try to get rid of it. And so the right way of dealing with these kind of things is not to push it away, nor to encourage it. Just be aware of it. And usually it will fade away over time. And finally, the final way of getting rid of such things is, of course, to enjoy the meditation more. If the meditation is really happy, you're not interested in Bohemian Rhapsody or anything else for that matter. And that is really the final thing here. So don't encourage it, don't push it away, just observe it. And as you observe it and mindfulness becomes stronger, it tends to fade away. And eventually the meditation will be much more interesting than any sensual pleasures of this kind. It is still a sensual pleasure. It doesn't come through the senses, but it is a sensual pleasure regurgitated by the mind. Dear inspiring Ajahn, okay. I empathize with the one who wrote about agonizing over his breath for 10 years. Yes, I know what you mean. Same here, except it is my thinking mind and lack of mindfulness. And thankfully, I am not discouraged still. Over the years, you've taught a range of suttas and techniques to overcome the challenges, to limited success. I am not giving up, but feel I need to go back to the ABCs. Please go back to the ABCs. It is, I think we should all go back to the ABCs. The path is mostly about ABCs, and the D's to Z, they're kind of irrelevant for the path. Actually, the Z is okay. The Z is kind of the sleeping one. And this retreat felt like grad school. The retreat like this, the idea of a retreat like this is to do many, many different things. And so you start off with the simple instructions. And sometimes on these retreats, I go into a lot of detail about morality and all of these kind of things. But you have to have different content sometimes. And many of the things I was talking about, especially, we put a lot of time into the idea of the Mahanama Sutta. We spent almost 2 days, I think, on that sutta. Can't remember now, probably about 2 days, 4 sessions or something. A lot of time. And that really is kind of basic Buddhism, the idea of encouraging the confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, trying to get joy in that. The idea of looking at generosity and kindness and how you get joy out of that. If you get joy out of it, you encourage it even more, you get even more joy out of it. And so this is actually very foundational and in many ways quite basic. So go back to use those things to help you out. Many of the other things that I've talked about are also not, I would say they're also fairly foundational in the sense that they are about right view. Right view is absolutely fundamental on the path. So when we talk about things like rebirth, very, very important in Buddhism. When we talk about the 5-sense world not being so interesting, actually very important as well. The idea of impermanence, changeability of things. And this is very, very useful. Death contemplation, very basic actually, because we all know about death already, and so you use that to help you out. So please take away the many little things in there that can be very useful. I agree with you that some of the things are very profound, especially now coming towards the end of the retreat. Yeah, I can understand why you say that. But don't be discouraged by that. Yeah, if it doesn't make 100% sense or it's too far away, you feel it's too kind of airy-fairy or whatever, use it more as a kind of background understanding of the Dhamma to encourage you on the path. Yeah, the whole thing is to kind of give rise to meditation and give rise to good qualities ultimately. Yeah. How will Ajahn advise in practical terms, please? Many thanks and much metta to Lay Heart Christina, Pat, Go, Tim, and the other devas. Haha, that's nice, isn't it? All the devas, all the jhana groovy devas. Okay, so I will summarize, maybe tomorrow I will summarize the last 10 minutes or so, the practical terms. But you have a point, so it's always good to summarize at the end of every retreat anyway, to kind of what are the main kind of takeaways. Ajahn, I thought the word of the Buddha was by Jnanatiloka, not Bhikkhu Bodhi. And Jnanatiloka's book is called, one is called The Word of the Buddha, one is called In the Buddha's Words. Yeah, so they're very closely related. So in the Buddha's words, the Bhikkhu Bodhi, and the word of the Buddha is Jnanatiloka, I think. Jnanatiloka is the book that Ajahn Brahmali uses for his for many of his teachings, and that he translates a little bit in his own way. It's a very nice little book because it's extract from the suttas and showing the Four Noble Truths from various extracts of the suttas. So it's a very nice little book. I would recommend that one as well. So thank you for bringing it up. So there's two books I'm talking about here. And what's the evidence that suggests Alara, Kalama, etc. didn't practice jhana? Okay, thanks heaps, you're amazing. Okay, so so I said yesterday if you wanted to know, you should ask. And now you have asked, and I obliges me to answer, I suppose. And the evidence, the most interesting evidence for that is that it says in the Pali version, it says that these Alara Kalama, these two spiritual yogis, Alakrama and Udakramaputa, or rather Rama, they had the 5 spiritual faculties. Yeah, we talked about the 5 spiritual faculties briefly before. They are faith or confidence, energy, mindfulness, stillness, samadhi, and then wisdom, the 5 spiritual faculties. And if you have all 5 of them, samadhi is one of them. And that means they would have had the jhanas, right? Because that's how the samadhi faculty is described. So, and that implies that these were the real deal. But then when you go to there's a version in the Chinese canon, which is a parallel version kept in the Sarvastivadin school, which has exactly the same sutta, but is slightly simpler. And that suggests that that sutta may be an slightly earlier version, and that perhaps the Pali version has been added to a little bit. And in that sutta, there's only 3 of the 5 spiritual faculties, and the 3 are confidence or faith, energy, and wisdom. Mindfulness and samadhi are not mentioned. And that may point to the fact that these spiritual teachers did not actually have the full samadhi, and that what they called these attainments of Akinchayatana and Nevasananasanyayatana, the 2 highest kind of meditative states in the stillness, they may not have had them. And that is kind of the evidence. How good is that evidence? I would say not particularly good, It is just a possibility, that's all. And I think I prefer the other viewpoint, that they actually had wrong view. But I think it is possible, and I respect those who use that argument. Venerable Sir, thanks for clarifying the main difference between the jhanas practice in ancient India and that in Buddhism. It is good if you could explain the difference between the type of jhana of the Indian ascetics practice in contrast to the jhana practiced by the Buddha during his enlightenment. Thank you. Much anumodana. The jhana practiced by the Buddha during his enlightenment. I'm not sure exactly what you mean now. The jhanas practiced by the Buddha before his enlightenment, you said during his enlightenment, before his enlightenment are the jhanas that they also had a degree of right view to them. And so the Buddha to be had more right view than those ancient ascetics. Yeah, because he had understood, he didn't want to get reborn, he had understood the danger of rebirth. He used those jhanas to remember his past lives, and so he had an idea of dukkha. Yeah, the most difficult thing is to fully understand dukkha. This is kind of the hard thing. Yeah? But if you have a very powerful remembrance of past lives, you understand dukkha. And then by understanding the kamma, or understanding the laws of kamma, which is the second insight during the awakening experience, you also understand the causality behind dukkha, what drives it, yeah, the intentions and these kind of things. So the Buddha already was starting to see the Four Noble Truths quite clearly, right? He understood dukkha very broadly, the cause of dukkha. He was understanding the path almost fully. He had realized the jhanas were part of the path. Basically, the 8 factors of the path are fulfilled. If you understand the jhanas, only the first factor, right view, is still a little bit missing, but mostly there. And then you also understand the idea of nibbana is the ending of that causality that drives the rebirth process. You don't fully know what it is yet, but you're getting very close. And so I would say the Buddha to be, through all of his practices, he was approaching that right view very, very closely, so that the gap between where he was and the full right view was very small. And that's why he was able to make that jump, whereas the other ones were not. The most important thing that the Buddha abandoned was the idea of the permanence of something behind the scenes, like the permanent consciousness or the Brahman God. That is what he abandoned. All the other ones, all the earlier ascetics, they had that idea, and that blocked them from being able to attain awakening. When the Buddha gave up that view, that opened up the path to becoming fully enlightened. And that is the difference between the Buddha to be and those earlier ascetics. Okay. Dear Ajahn, can you please explain the meaning of fruit and path? Which one comes first, the fruit or the path? So path comes first, fruit comes afterwards. The fruit is the result, the path is the cause. And so this is kind of Abhidhamma terminology, and according to the Abhidhamma, the path comes one mind moment before the fruit. Path is like the destruction of the defilements, and the fruit is then the resulting bliss or whatever, or that comes from that. In the suttas, it is a bit different. In the suttas, what you find that there is something called you practice for the achievement of the fruit. Yeah, so there is the one who is on the path for the achieving of the fruit, and then there is the one who has achieved the fruit. And in the suttas, these are not mind moments; these are real human beings. Yeah, so you're practicing for a while to achieve the fruit, and then you achieve the fruit, and etc. for all the 4 various attainments. So this is how the suttas talk about this, and that is what I think is really the most interesting one. This kind of mind moment thing found in the commentaries or Abhidhamma is probably right. There's probably nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't really fit with the sutta terminology. Dear Ajahn, what happens to all the beings when one cycle of samsara ends, and how does a new cycle begin? Much gratitude for your teaching. I think this is the same teaching, same question we just had before. All the beings when one cycle ends, and how does a new cycle begin? So I think, and the way that this is described in the suttas, they talk about evolution and devolution of the world, the loka, vivattati, and sangvattati. Vivattati is the rolling out. It's very interesting that the words in Pali are almost exactly the same words as you have in English. Evolve, vivattati. Vattati means to roll. Evolve is to roll. Evolve, to roll out. Vivattati, to roll out. It's exactly the same idea. The evolution, of loko, of the world. And so the terminology is very, very similar to what we use today. Sangvattati, to roll together. I don't know what that is in English. Devolve or involve or something like that. We don't really have a proper word for that. The opposite of evolution, maybe devolution, not sure. Devolution means something else in English. And so it seems like, that and these evolutions, vivattati and savattati, are measured in the eons in the suttas. And those eons, if you look at the time spans, they kind of, depending on how you look at these things, they are ballpark, roughly seem to be very close to what we are talking about in terms of evolution of the cosmos. There are ways of calculating that based on some of the numbers in the suttas. I don't know, maybe that's just a coincidence, but I think that what the Buddha was talking about is precisely the universe kind of coming, expanding, and this kind of cyclical universal model. That's what it looks like to me in the suttas. And so for that reason, I think that is what the cosmologists also will eventually settle on. So beings, they go to a realm, the Abhasra Loka, which is largely outside of I suppose, the universe, and the kind of universe then comes back again, and then they get reborn into that universe, something like that. Dear Ajahn, just a question out of curiosity here. Aren't most questions out of curiosity? Anyway, if a person realized stream entry in a past life, how would they know that they are already a stream winner here? Do they have to experience the explosive experience again with metta? This is kind of one of those questions that is asked generally, and that I think nobody really has a good answer. I never really heard a very satisfying answer to this one. So I don't think you necessarily know, and it probably doesn't matter, whether you know or not. Do you have to re-experience it? I don't know if you have to. The point is that you have right view, and so you will tend to do the right things. You will know that to live morally is incredibly important. That will be part of your psychology, and that's because that's irreversible. You have an idea what it means to purify the mind, how it is done. All of these kind of things. And so you will tend in the right directions. And so whether you re-experience it again or not, I think is irrelevant. There still only will be a maximum of 7 lifetimes, and then you will come to the end regardless. Because your right view has been established. You are ditti patto, as it says in the suttas. You have attained to view, and that view is there. That's my understanding. I have good news. We're coming towards the end. So now, what is this? This is ready. Okay, let's see what this is. Am I supposed to open this now or later on? Let's see if I can read through. So I'll read through here. I think someone has given me a Buddha statue. That's very, very nice. Thank you, Ajahn, for your time and service to teaching us. When you explained the Buddha, I felt like Buddha is alive and I am living with the Buddha. The way you explain is so inspiring. Good. So the suttas are coming alive, which is exactly the idea. You can't believe how much faith, energy, and saddha I gained through these Dhamma talks. We don't know how to pay enough gratitudes towards you and Ajahn Brahm because of both of your clear vision, and we are less deluded. Much merit for your service forever, Ajahn. May you be happy, healthy, and cool, and light the mic forever. Okay, that's wonderful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, and there's a nice Buddha statue there, which I assume is meant for me, so I will assume that. So good. So that is all for this evening. And just to remind you that the retreat is not yet finished. There's still possibilities of enjoying yourself and having a good time. So please have a good time to the last minute. The world can wait. I can assure you. It is not. There's nothing really to hurry back for the world for. So please keep on enjoying yourself, and we'll see you back again at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Let's just pay respect again to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha.
Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Svakato gacchasami. Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho sanghang namami.